What does the turbulence accomplish other than create vibrations and shaking on a plane?
Well, if you don't care about the long-term trajectory of that franchise, it creates the opportunity where either you destabilize and create the opportunity for change and the lessening of the head coach's power. If you believe that the coach has too much power and has all the power, and you start selling, what you're seeking is to knock the reins loose from that person. And if you don't really particularly care what happens after it because you don't really want to be there anymore.
Would you agree that even though the program that Pete Carroll and John Schneider have created has been really good for a long period of time, that having Russell Wilson is going to keep the Seahawks where they are at as far as relevance longer than what those two would do, just because of the fact that he is a quarterback? Or do you think that if all of a sudden those two were to leave, that this could turn into something entirely else?
Are you asking if I had to choose who I would choose?
That's what some texters are pointing out right now. There's this idea that, if you have to pick between the two, as if there is a need to pick between the two.
I'm not picking the quarterback. I'm not picking the quarterback, and it doesn't have anything to do with the value proposition of the of what a quarterback means. It has to do with rewarding and empowering the kind of behavior that we're seeing right now. If you allow someone to point a finger and then you say, okay, you're right, it's not a sustainable formula. Look, here's what I think happened. They had a really disappointing season, and I don't think the quarterback played very well in the second half of it. I don't think he did, and I don't think it's about the offense, and they fired the offensive coordinator because they wanted to get somebody else in here. And now the quarterback is acting out in a way that's like, well, I haven't won enough. I haven't won enough. You haven't done enough for me. You haven't protected me enough. And I look at that and say, well, okay, you're airing this in public. You're trying to blame your lack of success on the people around you, and it's a team that has really done a lot of different things for you, not to mention stood up for you when other members of the team weren't as enamored for you. So if as there's a crossroads and now that side's saying, well, it's the coach and the GM, and I just don't like how much control they have, and you're like, well, the quarterback's really important. That's why you don't negotiate with terrorists. Like there's a little bit of that of you can't. What does that accomplish? That every year you don't win the Super Bowl, Russell's going to want everybody around him fired or changed. He's going to want even more power. There's a certain amount. His job as a player is to do the best he can as a player. He's not a personnel executive. The idea that he should have more say over personnel, he shouldn't have authority over it at all. Have all the input you want, but the idea that he deserves more input and that it's comparing it to Brady, like that's what I hear when I hear these sort of things. And when I hear them mention the owner, I'm like, there's an attempt here, and I'm not saying it's Russ because I think it's pretty clearly coming from his agent that's trying to change it. And the last person I want deciding whether or not a coach and GM should stay there is the quarterback who's pointing fingers for the reasons he's not more successful.
And what you're saying is that, hey, you give some of that power to Russ. It's like the children's book. If you give a mouse a cookie, you give him the cookie, he's going to ask for more and more and more and more. There's never going to be enough once you have shown that you are willing to give this guy what he wants. Because once you get a taste, you're always going to want more.
Power requires accountability. It's not even hey, this is just going to increase. Power requires accountability. Where's the accountability for Russ here? Like, honestly, where's the accountability for Russ here? Offensive coordinator lost his job. We don't even know if Russell wanted that change and how he feels about Shane Waldron. He's not happy with the offensive line. Okay, if he's going to pick a guy, does that mean if that doesn't work out, like he's going to be the one that you don't get to do that? Power requires accountability, and I don't think that you see a ton of that right now with Russ.
The way you're saying it sounds like Russell Wilson actually does have a whole lot of power, seeing as there's not a whole lot of accountability that is falling on him. And also, if you go back to the amount of times that the dude has said legacy this offseason, that leads you to think about, hey, well, why is this all coming out? Is this some sort of power play? Because honestly, this might be just a completely futile gesture. What is this actually going to do, putting this all out in the public? And the people like me, people like Colin Cowherd, are talking about it. It really does feel like he is trying to polish this past season, and specifically the end of the past season.
He's trying to transfer blame. There's blame for that past season that rests on him. I don't think he played well in the second half of the season. And if it's going to become down, he wasn't protected enough and he got hit too much, well, let's talk about some of the other things that go along with that. And instead, I think that there's just a lot, there is a lot There's a lot of denial that's being practiced on that side of it and just finger pointing. And that's poison. It's poisonous to a successful franchise.